Hey folks, in this video, we're going to be learning how to import data from a Google Sheet to an external Python IDE. We're going to be using the Gspread library, and our end result is going to take information that's in a Google Sheet and then pull it into our Python editor so that we can work with the data in a pandas data frame. This is a continuation of my series on introducing Python's pandas data analytics library to beginners. In our previous video, we focused on importing data into pandas using Google's Colaboratory notebook. The reason that we did that is because Colaboratory is a Google product, so it has internal mechanisms that allow you to authorize your credentials. In order to use the Gspread library or the PyDrive library, which is a Google Drive Python library, you're going to need to authorize credentials and then feed those credentials into your editor in the event that you want to code on your local machine or host a script on a server. This video is going to try to teach you the basics that you need to get started in that process. So for today's lesson, you're going to need a few things. Number one is access to a Google Drive account, and then you want to have a spreadsheet with some data in it. I have a very basic spreadsheet here that I am going to attempt to read into my Python editor. That's going to be the second thing that you're going to need is some type of IDE. So my recommendation would be PyCharm. I have friends who use VS Code. You can use a Jupyter notebook, anything that is something that's on your local machine. So I'm going to be working in a PyCharm editor. The majority of the code that I will be showing you will be applicable, whether you're on a Windows or a Mac machine or you're using PyCharm or VS Code. If you're using something like Sublime Text, there are going to be some additional steps that you would have to take that I'm not going to overview today. But if you are using that editor, reach out in the comments or send me an email and I can try to send you some resources to show you how to get yourself set up. You'll still be able to use the majority of the things that we're discussing today. Additionally, you're going to need to have access to the terminal or command line. Like I said, I'm going to be working on a Mac, so I'm going to be working in terminal. I believe the majority of the commands that I'll be showing you are applicable regardless, but there will be some points where I'll denote a difference between Windows and Mac. Finally, you're going to need to have access to Google Cloud Platform so that you can enable access to the Google Sheets API. I'm going to try and move steadily and methodically, so I will denote when I think you might come to a point where you need to create an account or you need to log in or something like that. So I'm going to give you cues to pause the video just in case you need to take extra steps that I don't outline here. So with that out of the way, we are going to create a new tab in our browser, and we're going to begin by referencing the Gspread documentation. So we're going to select this here, docs.gspread.org. And I just want to take a moment to express my appreciation for the developers and contributors to the Gspread library. It is one of the most impactful tools that I've come into contact with. I use it every single day, and it has facilitated workflows for me that have been tremendously impactful. They do a wonderful job of making this a living, breathing entity. They recently shipped version 6.0 sometime in Q1 2024, and the documentation is already up to date with the new changes and the new workflows. So again, huge appreciation to the individuals that support this library. We are going to be using the authentication portion of the documentation. I'm not going to read all of this, but this section will outline some of the various ways that you can connect to Gspread. You can do service accounts and all that type of stuff. I'm going to be discussing end users using OAuth client ID. This is what I leverage in my projects, whether personal or professional. And the reason that I do this is because once you authenticate your credentials, you don't have to do it again. So it's a one-time authorization, and then you can reuse your credentials over and over again. So that allows me to establish extraction, transformation, and delivery workflows to automate the exchange of data to and from Google Sheets. I just want to point out that the 7th step in this process is going to have a different file pathing if you're on Windows. So I'm going to be showing you the Mac version, which is outlined here. So basically, we are going to get to a point where we are going to have code somewhat similar to this. Basically, we're going to be using this OAuth method here. So there are 2 different ways that you can do it. I'm going to show you both ways, and I'm going to give you my recommendations on instances when you might implement them. So with that out of the way, we are going to open another browser tab, and we are going to search for Google Cloud Platform. You're going to select this link, which is cloud.google.com. It should say Google Cloud : Cloud Computing Services. This is a point where you might need to pause the video, ensure that your account is logged in, and that you're able to access this console menu item. In the event that you are unable to do so, there's a couple things that may be at play. Number 1, you may not be logged in. Number 2, you might not have access. If you open up a personal account, meaning you create a Gmail account, you should have access to the Cloud Platform console. Once you are able to access this console item, click on it, and then it will take you to your cloud platform. So I apologize because I don't recall what happens if this is the first time that you're here. You can see that I already have a project called Gspread tutorial. I want to create a new project, but if this is your first time, you might have a project called First Project, I believe. If that's the case, you don't have to create a new project. I'm going to do so though. So in the event that you do want to create a new project, you navigate to this drop down in the menu, and then you select New Project. You can name your project whatever you want to, so I'm going to call this PyCharm tutorial, and then I don't have an organization, so I don't have to fill that in, and I am going to create my project. We're going to have some visualization over here that shows that our project is being created in the background. Cool. So our project has completed. We can either select the project here, or we can navigate back to the drop down and then select the project that we want to work within. We no longer need this prompt down here, so I'm going to close it. And we're going to navigate to APIs and Services in the Quick Access menu. We are going to navigate to the plus Enable APIs and Services prompt. I'm going to select that. We're going to search for Google Sheets, and then the Google Sheets API should appear. We're going to select that. We're going to select Enable. And now we're going to navigate to OAuth consent screen. Because we're not part of an organization, we're going to have to use an external user type. So we're going to select External and Create. We're going to begin, we're going to come back to app name. I want to show you some things that might arise. So select user support email, and then just select your email account. You're going to scroll down to developer contact information, and you're going to enter your email once again. Now we're going to scroll back up and we're going to talk about app name for a moment. Now I don't want you to do this. I just want to show you about a prompt that you might receive depending upon the name that you enter here. So please just observe this part. You don't have to type anything. In the event that you use an app name that has the word Google in it, so for this purpose, I'm going to say Google YouTube example. If you try to save and continue, you're going to get a prompt that says that there was an error because the request was classified as abusive and was not allowed to proceed. I believe, I haven't researched this, but what I believe is happening there is, you can see over here that your app name is going to be used when a user tries to access your app. So if someone who is not you is presented with this prompt and it had the words Google in it, potentially YouTube in it, I haven't fully looked for the fringes of this. It seems like there's some logic here that does not allow you to do it because they don't want bad faith actors to manipulate individuals into giving up access to their accounts. So if you use the word Google at the very least and potentially YouTube, it will not work. Whereas if I change this to Brigidi tutorial and then I go down here and I save and continue, you'll see that it moves forward without error. So if it wasn't clear, enter in a name for your app and then go down and save it. And then once you're ready, we're going to scroll to the bottom of the scopes section. We don't need to enter any of these in. You can see that it is, it's not required that any of these are filled in. So we're just going to save and continue. And then you're going to need to add test users. So this prompt is saying to you that while it's set to testing, only test users are able to access the app. This is also a way for Google to ensure that they're able to review any apps that go to their consumer market. So we're going to select add users, and then you're just going to type in your email. So I'm going to enter mine. And, it seems like you can also add, like if you're working in an organization or you're working on a team, you can add up to 100 emails prior to verifying the app. So then we're going to select save and continue. And then we're going to review our summary here. We have one test user. And now we're going to go over to the left menu here, and we're going to select credentials. We are going to go up to the menu item up here, and we are going to use the plus sign that has the prompt create credentials. We're going to select that. And then we're going to be using OAuth client ID. We're going to select our application type. It needs to be a desktop app. This will not work unless if you select desktop app. The name doesn't matter. You can call it whatever you want to. I'm just going to leave it as desktop client 1. We're going to hit create. And now we have the ability to download our credentials in the form of JSON. So select download JSON. You also have the ability at a future date, if you want to download your OAuth client over here, and then you'll be prompted with that same menu that we saw. We've completed the first step, which was generating our credentials. We are now going to navigate to the second step, which is passing our credentials to Gspread within our external IDE. So if you have not downloaded an IDE yet, I would recommend pausing the video and then downloading something like VS Code, PyCharm, Jupyter Notebook, any of that type of stuff. Once you're ready to go, we are going to navigate to our downloads folder, where we are going to rename our JSON file from this long string to credentials.json. So for the time being, we're going to leave it in our downloads folder because I just want to show you one method for accessing these credentials. We are going to navigate to our editor, and we are going to create a new project. I'm going to call mine Gspread tutorial. 24, because this is the year 24. You can call this whatever you want to. I would recommend using all lowercase and underscores to separate multiple words. It's easier to access when you have to use command line or terminal, which is something that we will be doing. Cool. So you can see within my editor, I have a directory over here that has a virtual environment that exists within the directory that I just created. You also can kind of see here that we have a basic file path here that says that it's in PyCharm projects / and then the project name that I passed. And it creates a main.py file by default. You can also see that there's some indexing going on down here. I'm going to clear out my boilerplate because I don't need it anymore, and I'm going to remove that dot by clicking on it. That's a breakpoint. That's one way to get your code to end when you're debugging. So we are going to go to the terminal, and we are going to use pip in order to install Gspread and pandas. So we're going to begin by typing in the words PIP, or the letters PIP space Gspread space pandas. And we can hit enter. And then this is going to, oh, my apologies. We are going to type in pip install Gspread space pandas. And then you can see that we are going to start collecting our packages. So your editor is going to be doing this in the background. You know, it's just kind of like compiling the code and installing all the dependencies that it needs in order to leverage the functions within pandas and Gspread. Okay, so once our package is installed, we can navigate to our editor. Now, it might take a little bit of time for your packages to import. So if that's the case, just kind of give it a moment. Cool. And now that those indexing messages have disappeared, we can attempt to import pandas as PD. And we didn't get any errors, which means that we successfully imported pandas. We're going to try and do import Gspread, and we can see that we also didn't get any errors. So we have successfully installed our packages. So what I'm going to do is hit this minus sign here to hide the terminal, and then I'm going to hit this minus sign over here to hide our directory so that we have a full screen to start working with Gspread. So I'm going to hit enter once, and then I'm going to add a comment and say access our creds. So we're going to declare a variable of access, and we're going to set it equal to Gspread, and then we're going to use dot, and we're going to leverage the oauth function. So you can see here that it takes a couple arguments. The argument that we're going to focus on in the beginning is this credentials underscore file name. This is one way for you to define your credentials or to reference your credentials. I'm going to hit escape real quick, and I'm going to hit enter here, and I'm going to type the word credentials, and then you can see underscore file name is auto completed. I'm going to add in an empty string because we need to pass our credentials into this argument as a string. We're going to use the file path of our credentials in order to authorize our access to Gspread. So at this time, we're going to open up the terminal or the command line. If you're on a Windows machine, this might be a point where the operations vary. I've never done it on a Windows machine, so I'm not sure, so I just wanted to note that. But I think we should be okay at this point. Open up your machine's terminal or command line. So if you're on Mac, you can hit Command Spacebar and type terminal, and then this will return. Once this line appears, type in the characters LS and then hit enter. That stands for list, and that will list out all of the directories, also known as folders, that are available to you. Now, if you'll recall, when I downloaded my credentials from Google Cloud Platform, it went to my downloads folder. So I want to navigate to my downloads folder using the letters C and D, which stands for change directory. I'm going to hit space, and then I'm going to type capital D O W N, and then I'm going to hit tab, and it will autocomplete downloads for me. We're going to hit enter, and then we're going to type ls again. And now you can see that our credentials.json is in our downloads folder. We're going to type in the letters PWD and then hit enter. And this will provide us with the file pathing to the directory that we're currently in. So you want to navigate to wherever your credentials.json file is and then get the file path to it. So I'm going to highlight this. I'm going to copy it to my clipboard, and then I'm going to go back to my editor. I'm going to paste the file path into the string, and then I'm going to add another slash, and then I'm going to start typing credentials.json. And now I'm going to push the play button, and I'm going to attempt to run my script. And at this time, we should be prompted to log into or to provide access to our Google account. You can see we've now moved to a familiar screen, and you can see the name of our app is appearing over here. So we're going to select our account. Google hasn't verified this app, so you can see they're being very explicit to say this is not authorized, but we've been given access to an app that's currently being tested. That's why we had to add our email here. If you didn't add your email at that step, then you wouldn't be provided this opportunity. You're going to select continue, and then you're going to select all the things that you are going to allow to happen. So we're going to select continue, and the authentication flow has completed, and now you may close the window. After you run your script for the first time, you will have a new directory created in a hidden directory. So we're going to navigate back to our terminal so that you can see it. So we're going to type in the command cd, and then we're going to enter a tilde. The tilde is the character that appears next to the number 1 on your keyboard. So you're going to hit shift and then that key, and then it's going to give you a tilde. And when you hit enter, you can see we're now, and enter ls, hit enter, you can see we're now back to the top layer of our directories. So what we're going to do now is type in cd.config, and you'll hit enter, and now you'll see you're in a new directory. Even though you don't see config here, it's hidden. So when we type ls, you can see we have a directory in there called Gspread. So we're going to cd into Gspread, and we're going to type ls. And now you can see there's a file in here that says authorized_user.json. This is a file that is created once you authorize access to your account like we just did. So that means anytime you run this script, you're going to be able to log in without having to authorize permissions. So there's two different things that you can do at this point. Number one, you could move your credentials file into this config folder. Additionally, you could also move your authorized user.json into another directory so that you can reference it in perpetuity. Now, you noticed that when we did gspread.oauth up here and we do credentials underscore file name is equal to, we don't have to denote the authorized users, right? So I'm going to go in here. We can use a comma after credentials underscore file name, and then we could authorized user file name is equal to, and then we could also pass that file pathing in here, right? We could explicitly state the location of our authorized user file name. One reason that you might want to use this is if you're working with multiple Google accounts, right? So I have a personal Gmail account that I use for projects. I have my developer account that I use for my YouTube channel. And then I have my work account that I use with my employer. And if I wanted to work on one machine, I could store my credentials in a folder somewhere and then reference that. Additionally, I also host projects on a server so that I can automate my scripts using cron jobs. So, there's a couple different reasons that you might want to explicitly state this. Additionally, what you can do is you no longer have to define your credentials. So what we're going to do now is move our credentials into the config folder so that anytime you use gspread.oauth, it will default to the credentials.json and the authorized users.json. This is located within the Gspread library. So that's what line 7 here is saying, where you can download your credentials and then move the downloaded file to config/gspread/credentials.json. Like that's what we could have done from the beginning. You wouldn't have had to have figured out the file pathing to your download folder. But I just wanted you to be aware of that because when I first started using Gspread, this workflow and this process wasn't explicitly clear to me, right? I started out as somebody who literally just wanted to read and write to Google Sheets, and I just didn't know how to do it. So I just did whatever I had to, even though I didn't really understand what was happening. So the reason that I wanted to show you that file pathing was so that, as you get more advanced, you will have more control over what you're doing and why you're doing it. I also wanted to come back here to underline that, this differs for Windows users. So I don't understand what app data is, but I just want you to be aware that with this config file, that's specific for Mac. So if you do not have a .config or you weren't able to find .config, I apologize that I didn't say that before we started navigating that directory, but that might be an area of variance for you. So we are going to type cd and then .config/gspread. I'm going to hit ls and we can see we only have our authorized users JSON file in there. We're going to type pwd, hit enter. Now we have the file path for the destination that we want to move our credentials to. We're going to type cd tilde, hit enter, and now we're back to our parent directory. We're going to type cd capital DON tab downloads, and we're going to hit enter. We're going to type ls. We see our credentials.json are in there. And now we're going to do before we do that, we're going to do pwd, and we're going to get our file pathing. We're going to copy users / your name and then downloads. We're going to copy that. And then we're going to type nv space. We're going to paste in the file path. And then after downloads, we're going to add a slash. And then we're going to type credentials. And then we're going to hit tab to autocomplete it. So now you should have mv space your file path / credentials.json space. Now you're going to go up to that line where you have your name and then the pathing to config/gspread. You're going to copy that. You're going to paste it in, and then you're going to hit enter. We're going to hit ls, and now you can see the downloads folder is empty. We're going to type cd space tilde, and then we're going to hit enter, and then we're going to do cd.config tab to autocomplete, get the slash, do gs tab, and then go to Gspread, hit enter, and then hit ls. And now you can see our authorized _user and our credentials JSON files are both located in our Gspread config file. So when we go back to our script, we can now use gspread.oauth in every script that we run on our local device. So for example, I'm going to run this file for you and we're not going to get any errors. And the reason for that is because OAuth is defaulting to look for our credentials and authorized users in our config folder. So we no longer have to request access anytime that we want to read or write to a Google Sheet. So now we're going to finish out our tutorial with the exact same code that we wrote in our Colab notebook. So I'm going to close my terminal down, and we're going to access the workbook, and we're going to use that using the workbook ID. So we're going to type a variable of WB, and we're going to set it equal to access.open underscore by key, and we're going to use a single quote because we're going to pass it as a string. We are going to go back to our the sheet that we want to read from, and we're going to copy the sheet ID. That's what the key is. And we're going to go back to our script file, and we're going to paste it in there. We're going to hit enter, and then we're going to access the sheet. So we're going to call this sheet, and it's going to be equal to wb.get get underscore, worksheet, my apologies. Get worksheet by ID. My sheet ID is 0. Your sheet ID is anything after GID, right? So if you're using sheet 1, it's always 0. Otherwise, it's going to have a unique set of numbers that represent where it's located. Copy that number and paste it into get worksheet by ID. Finally, we're going to access the data. So we're going to do data is equal to sheet.get all records. And then we're going to pass data into our data frame. And we're going to save that to df is equal to pd.dataframe. And then we're going to type print df, and when we run, the result is our data frame. So you can see the first row is being saved as headers, and we have a 0 indexed row here. In the event that you do not want these values as headers, instead of using get all records, you can do get all values, and that will collect the data as a list. So the difference between get all values is that it returns a list of lists, and if you do get all records, it will return a dictionary. Cool. So in summary, we learned how to leverage the Gspread Python library to read and write from a Google Sheet. We didn't learn how to write to a Google Sheet today, but this lesson was rather long, so I figured we could just begin with the basics of getting set up with Gspread. I hope you found this lesson to be helpful. In the event that any of this was confusing to you, please check out my channel page to see if I have any breakout videos that dive deeper into some of these concepts. I think learning the fundamentals is a crucial step in figuring out how to do these things. You can also leave me a comment, and I will do my best to try and assist you. And finally, I also have my email address available in my About section if you'd like to correspond one-to-one. I wish you the best of luck with your data journey, and I hope you'll check out the next one.